Alright, what is up guys? It is Storm back here with another video, and in this one, I'm bringing you part 50 to Legacy and Naruto story. But before we begin, I do a Kurama voice in this, and it just murdered my throat after I finished this recording. But anyways, if you like the content you're seeing, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment. I mean, they're all free, so why not? If you want some dope channel merch, the link to that will be down below, or you can go to the store tab. If you like the anime ReZero or horror, then go check out my other channels, which will be linked down below. And if you just want to see more of me, go follow me on Twitter and Instagram, which will also be linked down below. But without further ado, why don't we just dive right on in. Amagekure, otherwise known as the Hidden Rain Village. This is a small yet highly industrialized hidden village. Its architecture is composed of several metallic skyscrapers with road ducts connected to them and many power lines surrounding it. As its name suggests, it rains almost constantly due to a storm above the village. All the water seemingly ends in a large lake that surrounds the village. History has always been grim for this village. Located in the middle of the 5 great nations didn't exactly help much either. While this location was excellent as it provided good trade routes that boosted the village's economy, it also had problems, and the main one was war. The Rain Village, and many other small villages would always get caught in the battles of the 5 great nations, even if they chose to remain neutral. They were dragged into endless conflict until one side admitted defeat. This is what happened during the previous Great Ninja Wars. The Second Great Shinobi World War crippled the village as she stood between 3 of the great nations. Konoha led by Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage, Iwa led by Inoki, the 3rd Tsuchikage, and Suna led by their 3rd Kazekage and wielder of the Iron Sand bloodline. Ame and their leader Hanzo the Salamander were forced to participate in the battle, and during it, the Sannin were born. And then came the 3rd and last Great Ninja War, a war that managed to involve all of the 5 great nations. Out of those 5, the fire in the Earth Country clashed with unprecedented fierceness, and Ame paid the price by being the battlefield. By the end of it, the Rain Village was in total chaos. Thousands dead, and even more injured. The surviving became nothing more than war refugees, surviving as the years passed by. Eventually, Hanzo was removed from power by none other than Nagato Uzumaki, or as he is known, Pain. He defeated and killed Hanzo and every one of his followers, becoming the new leader of the Rain Village. Pain, the self-entitled god of peace, rules the Rain Village with an iron fist, and anyone who disobeys him is killed. The Diva Path, or Yahiko's body being controlled by Nagato, stood in the tallest building in the village. Pain's Tower, as the building was called. From there, Nagato could see to the far end of the village, right at the gates. It made him a higher power to anyone below as he stood watching over his village, untiring and unyielding. Good job. Pain turned around from his balcony on the tower to gaze at the owner of the voice. Toby was standing in the room wearing the usual black cloak with red clouds, and as expected, his orange mask in place, with the right Sharingan glowing behind it. Toby, Pain said, as he watched the man slowly approach him. With the Sanbi captured, we now have 5 of the 9 Bijus. Nibi from Kumo, Sanbi and Rokubi from Kiri, and the Yonbi and Gobi from Iwa, Toby said, and Pain nodded. The Akatsuki had already captured 5 of the 9 Biju. They had targeted these Jinchuriki since they had no backing from their village. Utakata, Roshi, and Han traveled alone through the elemental nations, making them easy targets for the Akatsuki members. The Sanbi was released, so Pain took him down and captured him, and Yugito had simply been ambushed in a mission and thus given the Akatsuki the Nibi. What will we do about the rest? Pain asked. The Hachibi will be harder to get since we will most likely have to go through the Raikage as well. Then we will need the Ichibi, Nanabi, and finally, the Kyubi, Pain said, and Toby nodded. Neither of those 4 will be easy to take. The Raikage will be a problem, and the Kyubi bride has grown strong, Toby said, sighing. We already have the Kyubi's chakra from that fire temple kit Sora sealed in the statue, Pain neutrally said, but Toby chuckled. And you think Naruto will just stand by and watch us take the other Biju? For reasons I don't understand. He made it his personal mission to stop us. You heard what he said at the meeting. He's going to hunt us down, Toby chuckled, but Pain remained unchanged. No one will stop my quest. Anyone that becomes an obstacle will simply be removed with extreme prejudice, Pain replied in his monotone voice. until his Rinnegan began glowing as he focused on Toby. Even you, Toby. I know that you are not Madara Uchiha like you claimed, and frankly, I don't care, as long as you stay out of my way, Pain said, and Toby chuckled. You forget your place, Nagato, Toby warned. I was the one that taught you how to properly control the Rinnegan. You should be more respectful to your betters, Toby said with his Sharingan glowing a menacing red. It doesn't matter since our interests are aligned, Toby replied, not wishing to push Pain too far from his control. For now, Toby added in thought, as he could always kill him should it be necessary and take the Rinnegan for himself. How are you planning on getting the remaining 4 Bijus? Pain asked, curious about Toby's plans. Toby began but was interrupted when he felt Zetsu approaching. Strange, Toby thought, as he hadn't requested anything of Zetsu as of late. What is it? Toby asked, annoyed since he was interrupted. I should tell you that Sasuke is dead, Zetsu replied, and Toby's eyes widened. What? Toby yelled in outrage. What happened? Toby asked, completely bewildered. He couldn't fathom how Sasuke had died. Explain now, Toby yelled, glaring at Zetsu, who seemed to remain calm and unaffected. He died in the battle with Itachi, Zetsu simply replied, and Toby's jaw dropped. Take it from the beginning, Toby ordered, as he calmed himself down. I cannot explain any further, Zetsu said, and Toby raised an eyebrow. And why not? Toby asked, irritated. Because Lord Naruto ordered me not to, Zetsu replied, and Toby scowled. The blonde had yet interfered with his plans. Looks like things are coming to bite you in the ass, Pain said as he bit back a chuckle. The whole persona of Toby, being Madara, had begun crumbling down, the moment Naruto revealed his grandfather back in the Chunin exams 3 years ago. Damn. Toby sighed in annoyance. That blonde brat is always where he shouldn't be. Where is Itachi now? Toby asked, wanting to get some answer from him. He returned to Konoha, Zetsu replied, and Toby sat down as he began to nurse his temples. This isn't going well, Toby sighed. He had everything planned out until Naruto started to make a mess of everything. Even now, almost 17 years of planning to get Sasuke just washed away with him getting killed. I can bring him back if you wish, Pain offered, and Toby sat up at the realization that Nagato could bring him back, although at the cost of becoming even more fragile. Where is Sasuke's body? Toby asked towards the white plant on the ground. Reduced to ashes, Zetsu simply replied. I guess it can't be helped, Toby said as he walked into the balcony and overlooked the city. He, in the end, was just another pawn, Toby thought to himself. You were saying about the Biju, Pain said as Toby refocused on their current objective. Since Itachi has betrayed us, that leaves us one man shorter. I'll be heading to my hideout, and I'll be preparing the Zetsu army. We will need all the numbers we can, Toby explained. Are you heading towards the mountain's graveyard? Pain asked, but Toby shook his head in denial. No, I'll be at my main hideout. The one that no one besides me and Zetsu know about, Toby said, and Pain didn't seem pleased not knowing where to find Toby. Until then, Toby said and warped away. A few days later, Toby watches the Geromazo statue slowly funnel chakra into the white Zetsu. Several white Zetsu were being produced from the chakra generated from the Bijus. It seemed like a factory, and a highly efficient one at that. Biju had a limitless supply of chakra since, once empty, they would just refill given an appropriate waiting time. How many? Toby asked towards the original Zetsu. Toby was simply watching the events unfold with a smirk. He was literally watching the birth of his army, one that, in time, would be big enough to topple the elemental countries if need be. We have 3,000 as of now, and I estimate we can achieve 5,000 by the end of the week, Zetsu replied. And although he couldn't see it, he knew that Toby was smiling behind that mask. Excellent, Toby happily replied. I trust they will only obey me, correct? Toby asked and Zetsu nodded. Toby really didn't want his army to march into the battlefield only to be told to return home by Naruto. I will be at my other hideout in the meantime, Toby said and swirled away. Mountain's graveyard. Toby arrived at the base of his hideout and simply began walking towards the entrance. He was deep in thought and giddy at the prospect of having his new army that he wasn't really paying attention to his surroundings. Toby kept walking until his foot hit something. He looked down to see that he had kicked an arm and a bloody one at that. What the hell? Toby said out loud as he took in his surroundings, only for his eyes to widen in shock, disbelief, and anger, all at the same time. This hideout was the place where the Uchiha Clan was living, and the very same reason why Toby chose his other hideouts to build his army. All around the entrance into the hideout were bodies. Some of them were turned into stone, with shock clearly written on their faces, like they were petrified in an instant. Arms, legs, and pieces that he didn't know even belonged to the human body to begin with were sprayed across the grounds. Pools of blood everywhere, and the stink of decomposing bodies filled his nostrils. Swords, kunai, and shurikens filled the ground and the massive walls that surrounded the entrance. Even those old bones that were there, even before Madara had showed him this hideout, were now nothing more than ash. And that was until he noticed the amount of pieces there were. Toby estimated at least 100 bodies, and that was just counting the petrified ones. Toby approached one of them and gasped when he saw a 3-toed pattern in the rock. Toby quickly approached the entrance but noticed that it was blocked. When he approached it, he saw some message still imprinted in the wall, burning in black flames. Compliments of the Kiwi brat. Toby read in absolute anger and hate. The brat had somehow found out about his hideout. Oh, Naruto would pay very dearly for this. Years of planning, all gone at the blink of an eye. The Uchiha Clan, years of training, supplies, 1 decade to prepare their plan, and everything just washed away. Ah, damn you! Toby yelled to the skies and cursed Madara Uchiha and his grandson. This wasn't a battle to begin with. It had been a massacre. 1 day earlier, Konoha. It was a beautiful and sunny day all over Konoha. The Hinley village basked with sunlight. Merchants opened their stores and various shinobi could be seen jumping from rooftop to rooftop. Up in the walls, several shinobis stood guard, watching the horizon for any sign of trouble. This is boring, some Chunin replied as he stretched his arms and popped his back. I hate surveillance gigs, he said. You complain too much, soldier. Eyes front, Ibiki ordered, and the Chunin immediately assumed a correct position. Heads up, Ibiki said, and the Chunin turned to him confused. Swoosh. Oh, whoa! The Chunin cried as he stumbled due to some blonde shinobi blurring in front of him. Who was that? The Chunin asked as he already lost vision of him. The Chunin hadn't even sensed him approach, and only caught a glimpse of his yellow hair. Naruto Senju, Ibiki replied, making the Chunin's jaw drop. What's he doing here? The Chunin asked. Everyone had heard about the Senju clan heir. Morning workout, Ibiki said. The Chunin gulped. At that speed? The Chunin asked, stupefied, and Ibiki chuckled. You don't get to S-rank status by being lazy, kid, Ibiki explained, chuckling, and made a head motion towards the Chunin who took a step back as Naruto blurred by them again. That's insane, the Chunin cried in disbelief, and Ibiki chuckled again. Heads up, Ibiki said, but this time the Chunin caught a glimpse of a purple blur. The Chunin spinned around until he dropped on the floor with his head spinning. And that? The Chunin asked. Hinata Senju, Ibiki replied. Senju? The Chunin asked, confused. I'm surprised you don't know. The whole village already knows that those two are engaged, Ibiki replied, only to smirk at the Chunin's shocked face. The brat's only 17, the Chunin pouted. With Naruto and Hinata. How come you didn't wake me up? Hinata asked as she caught up with Naruto. Both of them were running on the walls around Konoha on their warm-up routine for the day. You look peaceful in your sleep, Naruto replied, looking back. How many laps do you have left? Hinata asked. Just the one, Naruto replied, and raised an eyebrow when he saw Hinata smile. Race you home, Hinata said, as she blurred away from Naruto and quickly disappeared from view. That's cheating, Naruto yelled as he also picked up speed. At the Senju compound. I won, Hinata said, smirking as she watched Naruto arrive. Ah, he cheated, Naruto pouted. You want to say that to my face? Both Naruto and Hinata heard yelling coming from inside the compound. Both of them opened the door and walked inside to see a strange situation that, funnily enough, everyone saw coming. Both Tobirama and Nao were staring at each other with sparks flying across their eyes. Itachi was at the table and only sighed at their antics. Senju? Uchiha? Both of them yelled as the sparks intensified and their chakra spiked. Can't you keep her in control? Naruto asked towards Itachi, who gave him an "Are you serious?" face. I just got my life, and I want to keep it, Itachi simply replied. Alright, knock it off, Kushina said, but Tobirama now didn't even move. Don't make me go get my sword, Kushina replied sweetly, making everyone pale. Tobirama now quickly stopped their antics and split apart. Just another day at the Senju compound. Poof. There was a cloud of smoke right in the middle of the room, gathering the attention towards it. When the smoke cleared, a single toad was standing in the middle of the room with a scroll in his mouth. "A message from Pervy Sage," Naruto said, as Tsunade walked towards the toad and collected the scroll. "Jiraiya has found the Uchiha Clan hideout. It seems now his information was right," Tsunade said, as she destroyed the message and placed it on the table, the hideout's location. "Of course it was," Now said, crossing her arms. "Jiraiya's waiting on us. Now what?" Tsunade asked towards the dragons. "We strike," Tobirama simply said as he got up. According to Jiraiya, the hideout has a single entrance that's located in the crater. "We'll have higher ground and we'll be able to ambush them," Tobirama explained. "Don't we think we might be rushing this?" Tsunade pondered. "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt," Tobirama said as Tsunade had to agree. For those who were born and lived during the clan wars, they knew war better than anyone. "So we'll attack at night and Naruto will use his Kirin Jutsu." "Makes sense," Minato said, nodding, making everyone blink and turn to him. "What?" Minato asked, confused, and Kushina just slapped her forehead. "Sometimes I wonder why Hiruzen made you Hokage," Tobirama said, and it pretty much summed everyone's thoughts. "And once we ambush them, we will do what?" Hashirama said, getting suspicious. "We'll kill them all," Tobirama coldly said, making Hashirama flinch at his tone. "You're insane," Hashirama said with a shocked face. "They were just following their clan leader. Some of them might be good people like those two," Hashirama said, pointing towards Itachi and Nao. Both of them remained silent as they watched both Senju brothers bicker. "We might not have another choice," Naruto softly said, and everyone turned to him. "You too?" Hashirama said, shaking his head. "You would slaughter nearly 300 Uchihas just like that?" Hashirama asked in disbelief. "Damn it, Hashirama," Naruto said, slamming his hand on the table, making everyone flinch. "Don't take me for some naive kid. You know very well what Nao said about their plans. They have about 50 Mangekos, Hashirama. 50, Naruto stated. "They can conquer any village with the right plan on their numbers alone," Naruto explained. "They can, it doesn't mean they will," Hashirama firmly said, and Naruto shook his head. "And you would be willing to wait and find out?" Naruto asked, and Hashirama remained silent. "Itachi, what's your take on this?" Naruto asked towards the silent Uchiha. "I made peace with my clan a long time ago. Their fate is not mine to choose," Itachi simply said. Naruto sighed. "Granny?" Naruto said, turning towards Tsunade, who smiled in understanding. "I am the Hokage, Naruto. My primary concern is the welfare of the village. You're the leader of the dragons, so it's your choice to make," Tsunade replied. And Naruto nodded and watched as everyone looked at him waiting for his answer. "Kurama, your opinion," Naruto said, and thought as he wanted one last opinion before making his choice.
"I don't know what the fuss is about. You've already killed more than 300.
Kurama simply replied, but Naruto remained silent. But those kills were never premeditated. The Uchiha clan hasn't done anything. They may be arrogant or vicious, but that isn't cause for termination. It was all Fugaku. How would you justify killing 300 people just because of one individual, when most of them might be innocent? Naruto thought, sighing.
This is war, Naruto. Most of the time, neither side is right or wrong. They simply fight for what they think is right. They fight for revenge, power, land, money, and even love. It doesn't matter. That is why my father and your predecessor tried so hard to bring peace. But in the end, he failed.
Kurama replied, and Naruto slowly nodded, his mind clouded by Kurama's words. "Perspective is a funny thing, wouldn't you say?" Naruto rhetorically asked, chuckling. Kurama just raised an eyebrow. "Look at Nagato. I don't know what made him that way, but for him to chase peace so vehemently, he holds nothing back to reach his goal, and I can easily tell that Fugaku is simply manipulating him. To Nagato, peace is achieved by pain. When mankind knows each other's pain, then they will understand each other and cease this pointless bloodshed. Then we have Fugaku's point of view, a man who simply wishes to rule the world. And finally me," Naruto said, smiling, as he looked up to see Kurama. "I will bring peace to this world on my own. I will carry this world's hate and lead it to a brighter tomorrow. I will bear the burden of my choices, and I will bring peace to the world in my own way. This world is but an orphan child, and I will unite it under one banner, not through force or an illusion, but through love and understanding, Naruto said, as he made up his mind. He would bear the burden, and he alone would suffer with the pain and consequences his choices may bring. There will be no Konoha, no Kumo, no Iwa, no Kiri, no Suna. There will only be one people, on a lonely planet. There will be only one shinobi, Naruto finished, as he looked towards Kurama whose jaw was on the ground.
You...
Kurama stuttered as he tried to come up with the right words. Kurama chuckled as he looked towards the grinning face of Naruto.
Then I will help on your quest, as will all of my siblings.
Kurama said as he brought his fist down on Naruto to bump it.
You have your answer, I see.
Kurama said, and Naruto tilted his head in confusion.
You are ready to meet him?
Kurama said. Meet? Naruto was about to ask who he was meeting when he simply toppled the floor unconscious. Naruto! Everyone in the outside world yelled as Naruto fell to the ground. Minato was already upon him running a diagnosed jutsu, but everything seemed fine with him. His heart rate was stable and his chakra network seemed to be running normally as well. Although everything was fine with his body, his conscious mind wandered off into the beyond and into unknown places. I see you decided to bring him before me, some old man said as he watched the Kyuubi approach him with Naruto unconscious on his head. Kurama, the old man added, lifting his head and displaying two silvery Rinnegan eyes. The old man floating in front of Kurama had deep wrinkles, a long beard and short light grayish colored shaggy hair that spiked up in the front with two distinctive parts of his hair resembling horns, and a chin-length braid hanging in front of his left ear. He had pronounced eyebrow ridges with small horn protrusions above them. He also had a Rinnegan-like marking on his forehead. He wore a white full-length coat, with a high collar revealing his necklace with 6 red mactama. On the back of his coat was a reflection of the seal which had the Rinnegan with 9 mactama in 3 rows beneath it.
Just like you said, old man.
Kurama said, giving the old man a toothy grin. That I did, the old man replied, chuckling as he watched Kurama lower Naruto into the ground. Naruto squirmed on the ground as he seemed too deep into some dream. First memory. Mom! Mom! A little kid yelled in glee as he ran through the halls of the palace where he lived. The little boy had short and spiky brown hair, but the more interesting fact about him would be his silver eyes, with several concentric circles around them. Slow down, Hagoromo. Some woman replied with a gentle smile. Hagoromo just grinned as he looked at the smiling face of his mother. She had very delicate facial features. She had long, sweeping, light-colored hair that touched the ground. Most notably were 2 horn-like protrusions which stuck out from her head, a trait shared with her son. Her eyebrows were cut very short, an outward symbol of royalty, and she wore a dark shade of lipstick on her lips and a dark shade of nail polish on her long fingernails. She wore the traditional high-collared princess kimono which was adorned with intricate lines and tomo running down the center and edges of the gown. Look, Hagoromo hurriedly said as he sat on the ground in a lotus position. Kaguya, the woman in front of him and his mother, just simply smiled at the bubbly actions of her son. Hagoromo took a deep breath as he concentrated. A small gust of wind was felt and Kaguya raised an eyebrow as she watched her son start to levitate from the ground. It was nothing more than a simple inch at first, but he kept going higher into the air as the time passed. 1 minute later and Hagoromo was already 3 feet off the ground. Careful now, Kaguya warned, considering that her son might hurt herself. I can go higher, Hagoromo said, desperate to prove himself. In a burst of air, Hagoromo rose nearly 10 feet into the air in the fraction of a second. See? Hagoromo said, smiling triumphantly. Ah! Hagoromo shouted as he lost his concentration in the midst of his own celebration. Hagoromo started falling, but instead of hitting the hard and cold floor of the palace, he found himself in his mother's arms. My bad, Hagoromo said, chuckling while Kaguya just smiled. Second memory. This is as far as you'll go, a now older version of Hagoromo shouted. He looked like he had just passed his teens and became a young adult. Hagoromo was standing in the way of a colossal beast. The beast was titanic in size, with each limb being just big if not bigger than Bijus themselves. The beast possessed visible legs, which it used along with his right arm to stand, as his left arm was missing at the elbow. Its facial appearance was possessed of a single ear on the right side of its head, while its mouth, which contained straight teeth and a nostril, moved to the left side and several horns formed on various parts of his head with 2 underneath his chin. All in all, it was a monster in every way of the word. It had no conscience and knew no end. Its only goal was to reclaim what was stolen from him. chakra. With a single swipe of his tentacles, entire continents were split in half. With a mighty roar, oceans were vaporized. Hagoromo was fighting the Shinju, or as most now know it, the Jubi. Limbo, border jail, Hagoromo shouted as he slammed his staff on the ground and a gigantic pulse of gravity was unleashed. The beast that could easily destroy the lands was flung back, tumbling through the ground, crashing and destroying mountains until it came to an end, and yet it seemed unhurt. To think you're unhurt against such an attack, Hagoromo said as he took a deep breath. Sweat was pouring down his face as he stood his ground against the strongest beast alive. Sage arts. Gate of the great god, Hagoromo said as dozens of red tories fell from above, pinning the Jubi to the ground. Large red gates pinned his tails, arms, and legs as the beast was momentarily trapped. This should buy me enough time, Hagoromo said, as he felt the beast struggle as his gates started to crack. Hagoromo sat on the ground in a lotus position as he began to concentrate. Small rocks around him started levitating and a small gust of wind swayed by. Hagoromo slammed his hands together and slowly began to drive them apart. A pitch-black sphere started forming between his hands. A buzzing sound was heard as this black sphere started growing in size, reaching the size of a football until it stopped. Big planetary devastation, Hagoromo said, as he released the black ball and watched it sail through the air and high into the sky. The sphere started glowing and the whole planet started shaking. Chunks of earth, big as mountains themselves, were ripped from the ground, giving birth to gigantic craters. The Jubi broke his restraints and pinned his tail to the ground in a desperate move to secure himself to earth. Brother, now! Hagoromo yelled towards his brother, who was in the ground in a meditative position. Sealing style, Hagoromo's brother said as he slammed his hands on the ground. 16 trigrams divine seal, the brother said, as hundreds of purplish chains, almost transparent, rose from his location. These chains quickly made their way towards the Jubi like snakes. They slithered towards their target. The chains wrapped themselves around the Jubi and started siphoning their chakra into Hagoromo, who gritted his teeth. Feeling the heavy chakra enter his body, the Jubi yelled to the skies as the beast started shrinking. The beast's form started wavering and the skin itself started withering away until it remained nothing more than a brown husk, depleted of life. Hagoromo absorbed all the chakra of the Jubi and tumbled forward, using his arms to steady himself and taking deep breaths. Hagoromo looked up at the sky to see the new addition. A new planetary form had just been created, and inside it, the depleted husk of the Jubi, sealed away for all eternity. We won, brother, Hagoromo said as his brother held him by the shoulder. Yeah, we did, his brother replied, smiling as both left the battlefield. Third memory. We see Hagoromo again, but this time he was already at an old age. He stood in the middle of a circle with several kanji in it. Around him stood all the 9 Biju, still young as they had just been born from being split from the Jubi. Shukaku, Maratabi, Isubu, Son Goku, Kokuo, Saiken, Chome, Gyuki, and Kurama. Hagoromo started as all the Biju listened in. You will always be together, even when you are separated. And one day, you will all become one, with different names, in different forms than you exist now. And unlike when you were within me, you will be led down the right path. When the time comes, you will know what true power is. Hagoromo said as he released his last breath. All the Bijus bowed their heads to their father. You will seek someone worthy, and when you find him, bring him before me. Kurama remembered his father's last request as he let out a lone tear. End of memories. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes, still a bit hazy from the rush of memories, and caught his surroundings. He looked around and spotted Kurama behind him, grinning like a madman. Naruto got onto his feet and noticed a floating old man in front of him. Hagoromo, Naruto started, as he took in the appearance of the man in front of him. Otsutsuki. Naruto breathed out in shock at the Sage of Six Paths, standing right there in front of him. Is this some kind of joke? Naruto asked, annoyed towards Kurama, who chuckled in return. I assure you, I'm very real, Hagoromo replied, as he stopped floating and stood on the ground. It's very nice to finally meet you face to face, Naruto Senju, Hagoromo said, smiling, and Naruto's jaw dropped. He had very good reasons for it. After all, Hagoromo Otsutsuki, father to all ninjutsu and to all shinobi, was standing right in front of Naruto. It's an honor to meet you in person, Naruto chuckled nervously. bowing to the sage in respect. "How are you here if I'm not so bold to ask?" Naruto carefully asked, as he didn't really want to anger him. "When I created all of my sons and daughters, I sealed my last chakra into Kurama," Hagoromo replied, and Naruto's jaw dropped. "And I gave Kurama the task to find a worthy heir, one that shared my beliefs. I guess you could say it was poetic justice for you to bear the Rinnegan as well." Hagoromo chuckled. Naruto just nodded dumbly. "You knew all along?" Naruto asked towards Kurama.
Of course,
Kurama replied, puffing his chest in pride.
I kept this fact hidden and searched through the ages for the man my father said that would unite the world and bring peace. I thought that man was Hashirama Senju, but I was wrong and moved on. Then I thought that man would be Minato Namikaze, but he failed as well. But the moment I first met you, I could see it through your eyes, and you would be the one. Hashirama is a good man, but is too soft and forgiving. Minato is exactly like him. Tobirama is the opposite of his brother in Minato. He cares only for the protection of his own people, and he would do anything for them, regardless what damage he would cause to the others. You bear the best attributes from each of them. You do whatever it takes to protect the people you care for, but you still feel bad for any pain you cause. To the other side, even now, you are pondering if you'd kill the Uchiha Clan. It's true they may be innocent, but killing them would be a crucial strike against the Akatsuki and Tobi. For some reason, you were able to see beyond that and make choices for the greater good, no matter the consequences. A true leader, Naruto. That is what you are. It is a curious thing, Naruto, but perhaps those who are best suited to power are those who have never sought it. Those who, like you, have leadership thrust upon them and take up the mantle because they must, and find to their own surprise that they wear it well.
"You speak as if I'm a leader. Would a good leader be willing to simply lay waste to innocent men for the greater good?" Naruto asked, and Hagoromo smiled. He saw so much of himself in that boy, all the struggles he had to endure because of his eyes and powers. "We're all human, aren't we? Every human life is worth the same, and worth saving," Hagoromo said as Naruto turned to him. "So should I just ignore the fact that they betrayed the village, and went to work towards a man that killed thousands of innocent people? How do you know when it's right to kill?" "Most likely innocent people," Naruto asked, and Hagoromo smiled. "That is your choice to make," Hagoromo said, and Naruto groaned. "Give me some answers, old man," Naruto complained. "You're older, wiser, and more powerful than me," Naruto said, but Hagoromo only chuckled. "You were right, on 2 counts. I am older," Hagoromo said, flicking a string of his gray hair. "And I am wiser since you are nothing but a knucklehead," Hagoromo said, chuckling as Naruto's eyes twitched. "But I am not more powerful than you," Hagoromo said, and Naruto's jaw dropped. But, Naruto stuttered at Hagoromo's outrageous claim. "You created the moon. While I'm strong myself, I could never achieve something like that," Naruto said, refuting the old man's claims. "It always seems impossible until it's done," Hagoromo said, and Naruto pondered if he would be able to do such a feat. He was broken from his thoughts when Hagoromo started walking towards him. Hagoromo arrived near him and placed a hand above his chest. "I can feel it, and you can as well. You are stronger than me," Hagoromo said, smiling as he watched Naruto slowly nod and agree with him. "You still didn't answer my question, old man," Naruto said knowingly as the sage chuckled. "My life ended many centuries ago, Naruto. It's your turn to watch over the world. I can show you the path, but only you can walk on it," the sage replied, and Naruto groaned. It looked like no one was going to give him straight answers. "Should I just kill them and be done with it?" Naruto pondered. "Is it the possibility of regret you fear?" Hagoromo asked, and Naruto slowly nodded. "Real leaders must be ready to sacrifice all for the happiness of their people," Hagoromo said, and Naruto chuckled. "You're right. I would do everything for the happiness of my people. But what about the happiness of others?" Naruto countered. "We could stay here all day long arguing about philosophical points of view and never reach the right answer. Every choice you make will have its consequences. It's how you deal with them that defines who and what you are, Hagoromo explained, and Naruto nodded. I'll stick by my choices, and I will finish what you started. I will unite the world under a single banner, and the world will know peace, Naruto said, grinning, making Hagoromo nod his head. It's time for me to leave, Hagoromo said, smiling as he lifted his hand into the air. Specks of light could be seen emanating from his hand, who by now was almost see-through. I have nothing else to give other than these two things, Hagoromo said, as he took out a 6-tomoed cape and placed it around Naruto. When he was finished, he picked up his staff and placed it on Naruto's hands. The staff is my greatest weapon, and the one that I wielded in my fight against the Jubi, Hagoromo said as Naruto grasped the staff tightly. Naruto hit the staff on the ground and watched as the ground shook and several ripples appeared in the water. Did you never find it strange that Bojutsu was the first art you learned, and yet you mastered it so quickly and at such a young age? Hagoromo questioned, as he watched Naruto do some experimental swings with his new weapon. With a single swing, powerful gusts of wind erupted from it. Another swing and a cloud of fire rose from it. And that cape? Naruto asked, curious, while Hagoromo just grinned. It makes you look like a badass, Hagoromo said while Naruto and Kurama's sweat dropped. I'm leaving, Hagoromo said, as his whole body started becoming transparent. The world is in your hands now. It's my legacy to you, Hagoromo said as he exploded into shining particles of light. Let's go change the world into a better place, Kurama, Naruto said, and Kurama nodded, taking Naruto from this plane and back into his own world. Back in the real world. Only a few seconds had passed since Naruto had fallen unconscious on the ground, and the whole compound was a riot. Hinata and Tsunade were all over Naruto trying to diagnose just what happened. Minato and Tobirama were scanning Naruto's seals for any possible malfunction or possible overload of him having the whole QB. And then, that was when it happened. Naruto suddenly opened his eyes to reveal his Rinnegan glowing in a silver color. As his eyes opened, a small shockwave was released, sending everyone tumbling backwards. Naruto smiled as he started getting up. Everyone watched in shock as a white cape started manifesting itself all around Naruto. He now wore a white full-length cloak with a high collar with several black magatamas. On the back of his cloak was a reflection of his seal, which had the Rinnegan with 9 magatama and 3 rows beneath it. As if things couldn't get any weirder, a metal staff started forming in his right hand. To some, it would seem like some piece of metal, but it was so much more. It was lighter, but stronger than steel. Naruto ran chakra through his staff, and everyone watched as a broken circle appeared at one end, while he rested the other in the ground. While moments ago, Naruto seemed too confused in what to do or what to choose, this Naruto seemed to radiate peace and understanding. His eyes seemed to betray wisdom beyond ages. It was as if Naruto had been reconnected to a lost piece of himself. It looked like Naruto had just found inner peace. So, Naruto said, breaking everyone from their trance. You won't believe who I just met, Naruto said, grinning. Naruto? Minato stuttered as he looked towards his son. Where'd you get that staff? Minato asked in shock. There wasn't much information regarding the Sage of Six Paths, but anyone shinobi worth his salt would at least know the legend that created chakra. I met him. Hagoromo Otsutsuki, Naruto said while everyone looked at Naruto in confusion. You know him. As the Sage of Six Paths, Naruto said, and everyone's jaw dropped. I know that feeling, Naruto said, as his new staff disappeared into his store seals and he sat down. I thought it was a prank from Kurama when I saw him in front of me, Naruto chuckled while everyone just listened on. Apparently, the sage sealed some of his chakra into Kurama to be released when Kurama had found a worthy heir. I met and talked to him. He advised me and gave me his staff as a gift, Naruto said, and everyone slowly nodded like some robots in sync. We'll strike a night. No survivors, Naruto simply said, and Hashirama had his eyes widened at Naruto's choice. I won't be a part of this. Sorry, Hashirama said as he walked out of the room, making everyone sigh. Let's gear up and prepare, Tobirama said, and the remaining dragons nodded. Don't get caught and come out clean, Tsunade warned. I don't want the daimyo of the Fang country breathing down on my neck for attacking his land, Tsunade said, and everyone nodded. What about Mikoto? Kushina said sadly. She was like a sister to me, and I know that she would never go along with this, Kushina said, and now chuckled sadly. Mikoto is a submissive and broken woman, now began, and Kushina focused on her. Did you know she is the Mangekyo because she betrayed you, now said, and Kushina was shocked. Betrayed me? Kushina asked confused. But she never did anything to hurt me in any way whatsoever, Kushina explained. I know how, Minato replied, sighing. Now that I know that Tobi's Fugaku, everything is clear to me. Mikoto told Fugaku where you would be delivering Naruto, Minato said, and Kushina was shocked, but she knew that it was true. Kushina had only told Mikoto, her sister and most trusted friend. Mikoto was responsible for the attack on Konoha. Only I, Hiruzen and his wife, and a select few of Ando knew of your location at that time, Minato said, and Kushina sighed, wondering how Mikoto could betray her like that. I guess I'll find out what happened tonight, Kushina said, and Minato nodded. Send word to Jiraiya about our plan, Tsunade said, and Minato nodded, placing a scroll in the toad and watched him dispel in smoke. At night, Mountain's graveyard. It was a surprisingly clear night. There were no clouds, making a perfect starry sky in the Fang country. It was also a full moon, shining brightly high in the sky, illuminating the grounds. Outside of the Uchiha's hideout was complete silence. There was no wind or any type of animals. It was the quiet before the storm. Naruto was sitting on the edge of the walls that led down into the crater where the hideout stood. Behind stood all the dragons with the exception of Hashirama, who chose not to participate in this. Naruto's hair swayed in the wind as the moon shone in the sky. To anyone else, it would look like a terrifying picture. Naruto sitting down with masked shinobi behind him. About time you arrived, pervy sage, Naruto said as Jiraiya arrived near them in a Shinchuin. I was far away already. I didn't want to stick around while I waited for a decision on what to do, Jiraiya explained, and Naruto nodded, rising up. Yakugan, Hinata shouted as her eyes flared to life, and several bulges appeared around her eyes. Hinata sat down as she concentrated slowly on expanding her range so she could gaze inside the hideout. The hideout is massive. There are hundreds of chambers, always extending for miles, Hinata explained. But there's only one exit, right? Naruto asked, and Hinata nodded, confirming. What about their numbers? Naruto asked, wanting to know if all the Uchihas were present. 342, Hinata answered, and Naruto nodded. It was slightly below the numbers when the clan was supposedly slaughtered a decade ago. According to Nao's intel, they have at least 5 members capable of using Susanoo. She didn't know anything about the others' powers because they kept to themselves, Naruto mused to himself. I'm going in, Naruto said, and everyone nodded and went to do their part of the plan. Naruto's part was to infiltrate the hideout. Naruto took a deep breath as he restrained his chakra levels to their lowest level, and with his level of control, only a skilled sensor would be able to pick him up. Naruto jumped down and quickly approached the main entrance. It was blocked by some gates, but Naruto could easily pass through them with his kamui. All clear, Hinata said through his intercom. Hinata would guide Naruto's movement through the base and warn him against possible enemies. Naruto nodded and phased through the door and into the hideout. Like Jiraiya had said many times, enemies never look up, so Naruto kept to the ceilings as he made his way through the hallways. The first junction is 20 meters upon your next left, Hinata said, and Naruto nodded, making his way towards the first strategic point in the hideout. Naruto focused and noticed that no one was around. He placed a hand on the ceiling and watched as kanji flow from his hand, embedding itself on the wall, until disappearing completely from view. Naruto made a tiger seal and noticed as the seal slightly glowed before vanishing again. First seal in place, Naruto replied in a low voice through the intercom. Naruto continued on his path, avoiding potential cluster sites and easily snaking around any Uchihas that came around. It wasn't like they were expecting anyone sneaking in anyway. Naruto phased through the ground beneath him and he came into another room. Naruto clung to the ceiling as he looked down to see some Uchiha resting on a couch. Naruto could feel that the Uchiha was still awake, although he was near the place where Naruto would need the next seal. What? The Uchiha was about to yell when his screams were muffled by a swirling away. Naruto had used his kamui, and, in a blink of an eye, had sent the Uchiha into his dimension. On the outside, a clone of Naruto had taken the Uchiha out of his dimension and properly dealt with him. This seal is ready, Naruto said as the seal glowed and disappeared as well. Naruto nodded to himself in a job well done and quickly sank into the walls as a couple of Uchiha stepped into the room. Where the hell's Ryu? Some Uchiha groaned. Maybe he's in the hall, the other replied as both Uchihas went searching for him. Naruto sighed in relief as he didn't want to set off any alarms. Yet. Naruto made his way towards the last place and cursed his luck as the place was crawling with Uchihas. Naruto counted at least 20 since the last place seemed like some living room or social room. How the hell am I gonna plant the seal? I can't warp them all at once, Naruto cursed to himself. The plan wouldn't work without every seal being placed in the right manner. Transform, Naruto muttered to himself, as he transformed into the Uchiha he had just killed a few moments ago. Naruto sang to the outside of the room and simply walked to the doors like some ordinary member. Naruto approached the wall and very discreetly applied the seal without anyone noticing. There you are, Ryu. Naruto heard someone calling and turned around to see two Uchihas approaching. Are we still on for tonight? The Uchihas asked, and Naruto cursed his luck. He just had to run into people that were looking for him. Hinata, tell my clone to read the Uchiha's mind I just sent, Naruto silently said through the intercom. Tonight, Ryu, or Naruto said as he tilted his head to the side in confusion. Don't tell me you forgot, the Uchiha asked in disbelief. Naruto was wondering what else to say when he felt a rush of information. Oh, right, the poker game, Ryu said, making both Uchihas chuckle. I hope you're ready to lose, Ryu smirked. Alright then, we'll see you tonight at midnight, when Uchiha said as both of them walked off and Naruto sighed in relief. Naruto walked out of the room, and once he was outside of everyone's view, he simply swirled away out of the hideout and arrived near Hinata and the others. Close call, Naruto said out loud. All the seals are in place. Let's get the rest of the plan going, Naruto said. Hinata, you're up, Naruto said, and Hinata nodded as she took a deep breath and she sat down. Not even 5 minutes later, Hinata had entered Sage mode with purple markings on her face. Sage arts. Petrifying rain, Hinata said, as heavy rain started to fall. Mito, place a barrier around Hinata since she's vulnerable when using this jutsu, Naruto said towards Mito as he looked towards Hinata, who sat on the ground completely still. Naruto channeled chakra into his right hand and sent a beam into the sky. From the dark clouds of rain, several thunders roared as they lit up in the night sky. Everyone turned to Naruto in confusion as his Kirin jutsu wasn't part of the plan. Just in case, Naruto said, and everyone did their part. We're ready, Tobirama said, and Naruto nodded as he brought his right hand and made the tiger seal. Activate, Naruto said. Deep inside the hideouts, the seal started glowing, and the ground started vibrating slowly. Only a few seconds later, the whole cave started shaking. This place is caving, some Uchiha said as specks of dust fell from the ceiling. Everybody out! The Uchiha yelled, and everyone started running outside so they didn't get crushed to death. Little did they know that inside was still safer. We made it, some Uchiha said as he jumped outside, taking deep breaths. Rain? The Uchiha muttered as he looked up to see heavy rain and thunders. Some luck, the Uchiha thought to himself as the hideout decided to cave when it was raining. Are they all out? Naruto asked towards Hinata, who nodded. Naruto made another tiger hand seal and activated an explosive tag he left at the entrance of the cave. With a loud explosion, the only entrance to the cave had been completely sealed off. Ah! Some Uchiha yelled, making everyone look towards him. Giant sand burial, Gaara said, as several Uchihas were enveloped by the sand that rested beneath their feet. With the confusion on the hideout caving, they didn't notice that the whole earth beneath their feet was actually sand. The Uchihas were simply crushed to death. We're under attack, some Uchiha yelled, placing everyone on high alert. Every single Uchiha had their Sharingan blazing and were looking for their enemies. Ah! Another Uchiha yelled as he fell to the ground, trying to scratch something off his arms. Get it out! Get it out! The Uchiha yelled in despair, as he watched his right arm begin to turn gray and unresponsive. Everyone watched in shock as their friend squirmed in the ground, until he remained completely immobile and gray, turned into stone. Ah! Another one yelled as his arm began to turn gray as well. The Uchiha fell to his knees as he tried to ignore the pain. Another Uchiha decided to take matters into his own hands and took out his blade. In a burst of speed, he sliced the dying Uchiha's arm off. The arm fell to the ground and it turned completely into stone. Ah! The Uchiha whose arm just got cut off continued screaming as he started turning gray. It appeared cutting off his arms didn't even slow down. It's the rain, another Uchiha said, as he noticed that the rain had chakra in it. Take cover! The Uchiha yelled, and no one questioned him. Someone summoned their Susanoo shield. Others took cover behind some rocks or the bones that were on the grounds, and the others rose some kind of mud walls to shield them from the rain. We managed to take out almost half, Tobirama said. They were still watching from above the walls. Hinata's rain and Gaara's sand took out almost half of the members since they were all caught off guard. Let's finish the rest. Me, Tobirama, and Minato will go in first, Naruto said, as both Blondes and Tobirama jumped down, landing in the crater. The whole ground was riddled with Hiraishin seals, and as such, the remaining Uchihas never knew what hit them. Flying Raijin God Slash, Tobirama said as he appeared next to an Uchiha with his Thunder God sword extended. The Uchiha's head simply slid down his neck and hit the ground with a thump sound. The head hit the ground, but Tobirama was already gone. Rasengan, Minato said, as an Uchiha was blasted away. Another Uchiha took the opportunity to attack Minato, but only sliced air as Minato appeared behind him and slit his throat. Naruto flashed in the middle of 5 Uchihas who felt him appear. The Uchihas raised their swords and kunais. As the Uchihas were preparing their strike, Naruto flexed both wrists as long black metal blades erupted from both his palms. Naruto extended both blades forward as he spun around, quickly killing all 5 Uchihas at once. Before the blood could even touch him, he was already gone. And now that you're there, come down, Mikoto said with her Mangekyo glowing and a red ribcage around her. Mikoto watched as one shinobi jumped down from the roof and landed in front of her. The shinobi bore blood-red samurai-style armor with a dragon symbol emblazoned in the chest plate. The shinobi had long red hair, and had an equal-colored mask covering his face. You can take your mask off. I know who you are, Kushina, Mikoto sadly said, and watched as the shinobi's mask fell to the ground, revealing Kushina, who had a sad expression on seeing the person she considered a sister. I don't know how you're alive, but it's good to see you again, Mikoto said, smiling. Did you tell Fukaku where I was giving birth? Kushina said with a neutral face. Mikoto only nodded. Why did you do it? Kushina asked, frowning. I thought we were like sisters, Kushina said. What would you choose, Kushina? Mikoto asked, but Kushina was confused. Minato or Konoha? Mikoto asked, and Kushina remained silent. I chose to stay by my family's side, but now I regret it, Mikoto sadly said. You can put all of this behind and come with us. It's not too late, Miko, Kushina desperately said, and Mikoto gave a hollow chuckle. Always that forgiving heart, Mikoto said, smiling, as her eyes glowed and her Susanoo increased. An arm sprouted from her Susanoo and a red saber appeared in its hand. Wind armor, Kushina said as her body became surrounded by a ghostly white aura. Mikoto swung her sword but caught only air as Kushina was long gone. Her wind armor drastically reduced wind resistance, allowing Kushina a large boost in physical speed. Wind slash, Kushina said, as she channeled chakra through her katana, giving it a blue hue. Kushina flicked her blade and released a blue wave. Mikoto brought her saber and simply broke it like nothing. Mikoto Susanoo raised her saber and was about to swing it down when several golden chains sprouted from the ground, wrapping itself around her arm and pinning her Susanoo to the ground. Miko, stop this, Kushina pleaded, but Mikoto just smiled sadly as she blurred through hand seals. Fire style, great fireball jutsu, Mikoto said, taking a deep breath and unleashing a torrent of flames. The flames washed into the ground but only hit Kushina's afterimage. Kushina's sword glowed a brighter blue as she reappeared next to Mikoto's Susanoo and sliced its arm off. The Susanoo's arm fell to the ground and simply faded from view as another one was born. Mikoto dropped her Susanoo as the chains fell to the ground and retracted back into Kushina. Kushina flexed her blade forward and channeled a large amount of chakra through her body. Dragon dive, Kushina said as she exploded from her location, flying forward at blinding speeds towards Mikoto. Mikoto smiled sadly as her Mangekyo pattern seemed to change. God of time, Mikoto thought to herself as her eyes pulsed. She saw Kushina begin to slow down until she stopped. Mikoto looked around and even the rain seemed to stop and open in the air. All around her, everything had come to a halt. I'm sorry, old friend. I hope you can forgive me, Mikoto sadly said as she placed herself right in front of Kushina's sword. Why do you wish to die? Naruto asked as he suddenly appeared next to both women. Mikoto's eyes widened when she saw Naruto. How can you move? My ability can slow down time to the point that everything stops, Mikoto said, surprised. I can do something similar, so I easily felt what you were doing, Naruto chuckled, and Mikoto was surprised to see another time-related ability. You didn't answer my question though, Naruto said, and Mikoto lowered her head. I deserve it. After everything I did, all the lives that were lost because of me. I just want to lay it behind me and rest, Mikoto said sadly, and Naruto nodded, allowing Mikoto to make her own choices. Thank you, Mikoto said, as she stopped her jutsu and Kushina pierced Mikoto's chest with her sword. No, Kushina said in shock as she delivered a fatal blow to Mikoto. She didn't understand what happened. One moment Mikoto was far away from her, the other she was right at the tip of her blade. Why? Kushina asked, sobbing as her friend laid at death's gates. It was my choice, Kushina, Mikoto said, smiling as a trail of blood ran down from her mouth. Do you forgive me? Mikoto barely managed to get out. She could feel her life slipping away. "Of course I do, Miko," Kushina said, and Mikoto let out her last breath. Kushina lowered her friend's body to the ground and looked at Mikoto, with a gentle smile on her face. "Naruto!" Kushina screamed, and in a flash Naruto was by her side. "What happened?" Naruto asked, faking confusion. "Bring her back," Kushina said as tears ran down her face. "No," Naruto simply replied, closing his eyes. As much as it hurt him to see his mother in tears, he wouldn't change Mikoto's choices. "What?" Kushina roared, getting up and standing on Naruto's level. "Bring her back," Kushina ordered, but Naruto remained still. Kushina jumped towards Naruto in rage, who simply held her as she weakly punched his chest. "Please, bring her back," Kushina pleaded, and Naruto shut his eyes to stop tears from coming out. "I know it's hard, but she chose this fate. Accept it and honor her memory," Naruto said, and simply held Kushina as she cried openly. A few minutes later, Kushina had calmed down and both son and mother split. "Feeling better?" Naruto asked with a small smile while Kushina just stared at Mikoto's dead form. "It's done," Tobirama said as he arrived near Naruto. He looked around to see that the Uchiha Clan had been decimated. "What about the bodies?" Tobirama asked. "If your opponent is of a choleric temper, seek to irritate him," Naruto said, and Tobirama raised an eyebrow. "Leave them behind as a message to Fugaku," Naruto said, and Tobirama shrugged his shoulders. He couldn't care less. "No," Kushina softly said. "I want to bring Miko back with me and give her a proper burial," Kushina said, and Naruto nodded, smiling as he tossed Kushina a sealing scroll. The Uchiha Clan, one of the strongest clans in the whole Elemental Nations, one of the founding clans of Konoha, possessing of hundreds of members and bearer of the Sharingan bloodline, had been massacred in only a few short minutes.